Hello, my name is Poncella and welcome to my channel. Um, Honestly don't know where to start because when you're a child, you don't ever think about your parents not being with you. And I remember as a child, my mother told me, which is true, that none of us are going to live forever, that one day we're going to die and we're going to go either to heaven if we have accepted the Lord Jesus as our Savior, and if we have not, then that person is going to go to hell and burn for the rest of their lives. I grew up in my early years as a daddy's girl. I wanted to go any and everywhere that my dad went. So I found myself hanging with him when he went to the barber shop or when he went to the local little pool hall to meet up with his friends. But I didn't know any better. I was a little girl, and whatever name he called his friends, I called them. When my mom found out about that, then she informed me, and I probably was about 3, that my days of hanging with daddy were over, that I needed to stay home with mommy. And the thing was, she was looking out for me because she didn't want any of those men to decide, Lord forbid, to try to take advantage of me. So I was groomed to be a young lady by my mom. And don't get me wrong, I still watch sports with my dad. And the sport we watched and what I learned was football. And at the age of 8, I saw a team in black and gold or black and yellow, and I decided that's my team, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they have been my team ever since that day. I grew up in a home with both parents, but by the time I was college age, my parents' marriage, not to say that it ever was good, because it wasn't, but it began to unravel. My mom tried. My dad wasn't trying, but my mom tried because she wanted her family unit to stay together. And that family unit included myself and a brother 3 years younger. But my dad did marry me. I got married back in 1991. Because he's no longer here. That's the parent I lost, my dad. So he was an ordained minister and also a pastor. During his life, he pastored at 2 churches. The most recent one just celebrated his 35th anniversary, even though he's no longer here. Now, over the years, through me traveling, after my marriage dissolved, I joined the military, and time went by. So it's kind of like I had an estrangement with my dad. But from time to time, we did stay in contact. And he notified my brother back in 2018 that he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, we had already experienced our mother, who is still alive. She had 2 bouts with cancer, and her bouts were in 2005 and 2015. So when my dad informed me that he was diagnosed with a prostate cancer, I decided to try to keep his spirits up. I ordered a inspirational calendar from Dayspring.com, and I had that sent to his home. But I would also, on a daily basis for about a year, I would think it wasn't a year, I would send him Bible verses that I received by email from Dayspring.com. Thank God. Now he elected to do radiation versus chemo. So after his rounds of radiation, he came up non-detectable with the prostate cancer. So we were thanking the Lord that he was able to survive his bout with cancer, just like our mom had. Dad stood me up in 2019. I went home because he had said next time I come home that maybe we could have lunch or dinner or a cup of coffee or something. Now, I'm not a coffee drinker at all like he is. He likes his coffee black. But every few miles, as I was itching closer to home, and I shouldn't have been doing it, but thankfully I didn't have any accident, I would take a shot of the marker showing how far I was from my hometown. And that would give him an idea how much longer it would be before I actually reach my hometown. I got home, and I was home for a couple of hours and hadn't heard anything from him. So I reached out to a friend of mine's, and she was like, yeah, we can go out. But I told her, well, I was expecting to hear from my dad, but I haven't. So I told her, I said, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's make arrangements. And since I don't come home very often and things have changed so much, if you don't mind, come on this side of town where my mom lives so I can easily find where you want to eat and I can make it home. It won't be too much of a hassle to get back home. So we did that, and then shortly thereafter, I think my phone rings, and who was it? My dad. And he explained to me that he wasn't feeling well. His hips were bothering him. Now, he had had a couple of hip surgery, replacement hip surgeries. So I told him that I figured something was going to come up, so I had made other arrangements. So he was like, oh, okay then. So, the only time I really would contact my dad, it seemed, is when someone around his age would pass. And then I would feel bad. And he made the comment that he doesn't have any friends left because just about everybody has died. And I told him, I said, well, you of all people, since you are a preacher, you know that nobody's come here to live forever. We don't know what day, what time, what year it's going to happen. But just like we are born, we all have to die. And which he knew that was true. So once the pandemic started, we still would communicate by text messaging. He, along with my brother, who is also a minister and also a pastor in a different state, began doing their Facebook Live services. I believe my brother started first. Then my dad started. Now, my brother would go to his church where a few of his members would gather. My dad would do his in his home, in his living room. And eventually he was texting me, in 30 minutes my service will begin. And I'm like, okay, but I've always watched my brother's first because my brother's service came on before his did. I got sick late 2020, and what happened is my vision became impaired. So I couldn't see very well, but I still tried to turn into the live church services. Once my sight started slowly improving, I would make a comment, and I noticed that when my dad played his theme song, is one of Shirley Caesar's songs that he would play, and he would look at his iPad to see who had made a comment. And when I made a comment of like, good morning, he would smile and lean back in his chair and wait until the song ended. And then he would say, guess what? My daughter is watching. And it looked like he was just delighted to be able to tell people, and those are his church members, that his daughter was watching. Unfortunately, I wouldn't always watch the whole service, but I would stay long enough that I didn't just comment and leave abruptly. Then, in July of last year, I was headed back to Texas where I live, and I was dealing with whether I should go see my dad or go back to Texas. Now, I'm from Louisiana, and he lives about 45 minutes away from my mom. So I said a little prayer and asked the Lord, when I got to the stop sign in my mom's neighborhood, if you would guide me, should I go left? That means I'm going to see my dad. Or should I go right? And that means I'm headed back to Texas. Well, the weather was supposed to get bad, so I was trying to leave out before, or get as far as I could down the road before the rainstorm hit. But when I got to the stop sign, I turned left. And I honestly was surprised. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go see my dad. So I called a friend who's from the same small town just to have somebody to talk to. And unfortunately, I missed my exit. And I told him that. So I said, well, I'll wait and go to the next exit because I was using my GPS. And it looks like I was driving forever before I came upon the next exit. The rain started coming down, and I was like, oh no, I can't see in front of me. And I felt like, oh, am I being punished? I did ask you, Lord, should I go to the left or should I take the right? And my car went to the left to go see my dad. So he called and he was like, daughter, where are you? And I told him I would have been there, but I did miss my exit. So now I'm headed to, and of course I told him what exit it was, and he said, I'm surprised your GPS didn't make you come there first instead of taking the other routes because this is a better route. So I was like, oh, okay. So I made it there safely. I was shocked to see that my dad hadn't given up smoking. He had been smoking since he was a teenager, and I thought after his prostate cancer that he had possibly stopped. And he said, I'm not nearly smoking as many packs as I used to. So I think he used to smoke like 3 packs a day. But I entered the home. His wife was there. Now, I've never taken the time to get to know her. And I was really shocked that she stayed in the room with us instead of letting us have some privacy. But what I was going to say was nothing that she didn't need to hear. And I'm just a keep it 100 type of person. So my thing was, I guess I'll stay here for like an hour and then go home to Texas. Now, my mom always checks on me, but not, I mean, she calls, but she wants me to call once I make it home safely. But she calls, and I couldn't lie to her. She was like, are you almost close to home? And I had to tell her, no, I'm just getting started. And she knew right away, you went to go see your dad. And I said, I did. And she said, okay, well, once you make it in, please give me a call. I said, okay, which I did. But his wife said, I'm so glad you came to see us. Come back and see us again. And I was like, okay. And when I do that, that means I don't think I'm making this visit again. But you never know. And it turns out, as far as I know, everything was going fine. Every week, he was doing his live broadcast on Facebook. His birthday came, and I wished him a happy birthday. It fell on a Saturday. And then he was eager to get his second COVID shot. Around this time, this was February, that's his birthday month, we had a freak winter storm that started on Sunday, which was Valentine's Day. And I reminded my dad, don't make an unnecessary trip and have an accident. Wait until the roads are clear again before you venture out to get your second shot. Well, he gets his second shot, and he tells me that he got it and he was feeling well. And then my life changed 4 days later. That was a Saturday morning, a week after his birthday. I woke up and I see my dad's picture on my phone, and it showed that he called after 2 a.m. And I thought that was really strange because he knows I'm not up that time of morning. Then I saw a text from my brother at 6 something, and I'm like, this can't be good. So I listened to the voice message, and the voice message was from my dad's wife, who asked me to give her a call as soon as I retrieved the message. But by then, I read my brother's text to let me know that our dad was no longer among the living. So I did call my dad's wife. Somebody answered her phone because she left her mobile number, and they said she was busy. But then they decided to ask who's calling, and I let them know it was Poncella, and they got her, and I spoke to Jean, and she explained to me how she found him slumped over a chair. And I told her, we may never know what took him out, but I'm just going to have to assume right now it was getting the second COVID shot. She said that she didn't want to know. And the more I thought about it, I thought it was unfair, but I didn't have to wait for her approval because I'm a grown woman. And I decided, once I contacted my brother to see if he was interested in getting a copy of the death certificate. He said he was. I said, okay, I'm going to order one for you and one for me. And I had both of them sent to my home address. And when they arrived, I was going to send them my brother's copy to him. So they arrived much sooner than is suggested on the website. And to my surprise, the cause of death for him is that he had a heart attack. And in some ways, I'm thankful to God that he didn't live after that. He took him, and I really don't know what his relationship was with his second family, but I felt like if he had lived, he may have been mistreated, because people get tired of you. And rather than him being mistreated, even though we weren't close like we were when I was a little girl, I didn't want that for him. So when God called him home, I was okay with that. The next thing we had to do is, once his spouse made the arrangements, and she said that she was going to probably try to have him a week after he passed, and that's exactly what happened. A week after his passing, the church where he pastors, where the service was, and my brother had been asked to do the service. So my brother and my nephew, along with my mom and some cousins and the church family, filled up the church. Many people spoke saying how wonderful a man he was. And that was kind of strange to me, because that's not who I knew. I knew a man that would get up in the morning with fuss, but open the front door and speak as if he never said a bad thing to anybody in the house, to our neighbors. Hey Sam, hey Eddie, how's it going? And there were some times when people would say, I wish he was my dad. And I would say, no, you don't. But I never would elaborate, because all of us have our shortcomings. And one thing about it, he's no longer suffering. He's free. And a lot of people like to say, oh, I'll see you again one day. And I don't believe that, because the earthly bodies we have won't be the same bodies in heaven. We won't know each other. We'll have a different relationship. But I still think about him pretty often. Sometimes I see him in my dreams. But I have no regrets whatsoever about how our relationship never was really totally mended, but it definitely wasn't broken.